wallet structuring. This is only relevant for you if you're selling, let's say, a piece of enterprise software or B2B SaaS that is, let's say, at least $25,000 or more per year. So ACV needs to be 25K, 50K, preferably, or even higher for this sort of really to make sense. Once you start to hit like 200, 300, 400K a year, then it's definitely one of the things that you should be looking into. So wallet structuring means the following. Whenever you're trying to sell into an organization, there likely is a primary buyer of your solution. So this is the business person in your customer's organization that owns the problem that you're trying to solve with your software. And this business person is going to have some KPIs and a budget and a case that you can help them crack. That's all great. But he or she is likely not alone in making the decision to buy your software, right? So what's going to happen is that, let's say you're going to sell into some sort of business line, then they're going to bring in finance, they're going to bring in procurement, they're going to bring in compliance, they're going to bring in all these different stakeholders in the organization to help them make decision. Also because if I buy a piece of software and then everyone else hates me because I made a mistake, then it looks really bad. And also it's going to be difficult for me to implement the solution if I don't have buy-in from everyone sort of adjacent to me in the organization. So, you get these committees that buy software, especially at these sizes. Most SaaS teams I work with see this as an obstacle. They're like, oh, we have all these committees and, the buyer can't make a decision on his own. And, procurement is getting involved and compliance is getting involved and IT department is getting involved. And really, we just want to, essentially like carve out the business owner and just sell to her. I think that's a wrong approach for several reasons. One, it's not going to happen. That business owner is pulling in all these people for a reason. Part of that is ass covering, that they really don't want to be exposed to the risk of this failing. But another is actually, as I mentioned, that they want all these stakeholders to be part of actually implementing the solution, which is where you come in if you're smart. And that is by taking your pricing model and actually carving it up to cater to each of these stakeholders, because every stakeholder has a budget that they can activate, which means they have money, they can pay you. So one of the best examples I have from a customer case, which is sort of a project I worked on when I sort of discovered this concept and started to sort of elaborate on it more, was I was working on an InsurTech case. And this was a product that maybe turned over maybe $10 million annual ARR, but they did so on maybe 30 insurance companies. So the ACV was relatively high. It was like 300K. And we were selling directly into the claims management systems. So it was head of claims that was sort of the primary business customer. And we weren't as profitable as we would like with the product. So we were going to raise prices. But the head of claims, the main customer in the customer's organization he was sort of stretched because the price per claim was starting to be so high that he really couldn't justify it, at least not on all of the claims. So we were like, okay, we're going to increase the price per claim, but then either the customer isn't going to flow all the claims through our software, which is bad because then we lose volume and then essentially we lose pricing as well, or we're just going to see some churn, or at least we're going to have like heavy resistance with a price increase. So instead what we did was say, okay, so head of claims, we can't touch him, but right next to him, we have an IT department. As this was insurance software, we did a lot of health insurance, which meant that we did a lot of claims handling of health insurance, which meant that we did a lot of storage of large X-ray files and other data files associated with health insurance cases. So we said, okay, so we have this massive storage obligation that we're handling for our customers. Why don't we just move this to the side and say, well, the claims price remains the same, but now you have to pay for the storage that you use. Oh, and by the way, we also have some third-party data sources that we're pulling in, and we also have some cloud infrastructure costs that we'd like you to pay, and so on and so forth. And because they were insurance companies, they were already used to paying these things. They were already paying for storage and for cloud and for third-party data licenses and so forth. So what we did was we said the claims price remains the same, 100, whatever the index. And then we were adding, I think, 60% on top, but on the IT budget. And part of this actually we carved out to their compliance budget and so forth. And this is what wallet structuring is. It's looking at your customer's budget structure and their organization and saying, well, we're mainly loading this budget, but actually there's money over here as well in IT and compliance and all the other departments that are already participating in, let's say, sanctioning the sale and allowing this solution to be used. So why not have them pay for parts of it? Since I've done this across several dozens of organizations, but always when the ACV is higher, when you can actually take a substantial amount and sort of the ticket size of what you're pulling into compliance or what you're pulling into IT budgets is, let's say, tens of thousands of euros or more. And I've done it a lot in fintech, so with banks and infrastructure and so forth. I've also done a lot in defense. I've done a lot in manufacturing and so forth. It's simply getting a sense of what kind of things, let's say line items, that you're selling. So if it has to do with reporting or security and so forth, maybe it's compliance that needs to do it. If it has to do with training or certifications, maybe it's HR that needs to do it. If it has to do with API calls or storage, maybe it's IT that needs to do it. And then if you phrase your pricing, so price per IP call or price per training certificate, in a way that the target budget can understand, then they're very likely to just accept it. So someone from the business line is going to come through the door and say, hey, HR, we're going to do the solution thing that we talked about, but they want us to pay for like 200 training hours to get all the sales reps up to speed. And, so we thought that maybe that's part of the HR budget. That's very likely to be accepted. If overall the organization thinks that the purchase of your solution is a good idea, HR is willing to accept this load onto their budget, because really, how are they going to say no, right? Like, it's training, it's upskilling and so forth. Sure, that they're going to do that and so forth. So wallet structuring is one of the most powerful tools to get past budget constraints and also get past these sort of price ceilings that you sometimes get in larger organizations.